within a week, right? 5 business days usually. Just something so small, which I think will save deals, will impress clients, will give you a comfort level, and it's so simple. For us, it takes no extra effort, right? We have a due diligence team. If we put 10 more deals, into the pipeline, it doesn't matter. We're not going to charge a client for that work because it's not heavy lifting. It's just getting things organized. But use that mentality, for your deals, being super proactive. Many of you are here, but the top brokers we work with are, I say it politely, insanely proactive, right? Thinking 10 steps ahead in every deal. Before we get to the topic at hand, who here is a Nyrac member? Or I guess a sponsor. Okay, not so many. So just very quickly, we're all salespeople.
Give back your food.
Yeah. Exactly. So we'll give it. Since we're salespeople, we can be transparent. I'll give you a quick pitch, but I mean it genuinely. We've been a sponsor of my firm since inception. Many of us were chatting. Bianca and I were chatting, and some of us early on here. Community collaboration is more critical than ever, right, in today's market, especially what's going on with the industry. So brainstorming with each other, supporting each other. I mean, it's funny, I introduce brokers to each other, and it turns out they work for the same company and sit on the same floor for 5 years, they don't know each other, right? So that's, for me, that's a red flag, right? In order to educate yourself, protect yourself, and objectively speaking, even though I am a sponsor, what Nyrac's done with different topics we talk about, other law firms talk about, bankers, industry leaders, it's always cutting edge, it's always informative, it's always value added. And for you, I think it's hard because you really have to be proactive to learn and to keep up with the times and understand what's happening and really take the time to educate yourself, right? Whether it's on the legal end, the banking end, and Nyrac provides a forum for that. Leonard?
Look, I think now more than ever, Nyrac's importance is highlighted in how, as an industry, we have to come together and send out a message to the world. This is our first priority, aside from all the other things that I think Nyrac is working on, to really accurately message to them what is happening and what we do in the equation of real estate, because I have been literally blown away just reading not just the articles in the media have been astoundingly inaccurate and distorted, but what's even more astounding is if you read the comment sections. Just read the comment sections and you will get a very clear understanding of what the consumer feels about us in this profession. It's remarkable, it's breathtaking. So there is an enormous amount of work that has to be done to correct this, and more importantly, I do think any fight is worth fighting if you have truth on your side. And what is out there right now is the opposite of truth. It is a fallacy, it is fantasy, and worse, I'm almost certain some of it is being fueled by entities that are in this specifically for personal gain. They do not want to make the life of the consumer cheaper or easier. They want their money. And they want the money that is coming to us because why not? There's opportunity here, and they can fuel this opportunity. And they are big advertisers, and big advertisers have a lot of punch when it comes to editorials these days. If you look at the volume of sponsored content that's identified, it's a lot. If you look at the volume of content that is not identified as sponsored, but that we know is, it's even worse. And in the old days, there was a very pretty much effective, slow-moving media that would look at issues, interview all the parties, establish the facts, and then report on them. There's no time for that anymore. And the media is not only out of time, but they're also out of money. It's highly competitive. And a salacious headline that fuels engagement has 100 times more value than an accurate form of reporting. So we cannot rely on the media anymore to provide the facts. And I'm not anti-media at all, by the way, but some of what I've read in the past week is so astounding to me as to be unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable. So in this lies this phenomenal opportunity that we have, in that we have mechanisms today whereby we can actually distribute information and fact on a mass level and control the message, specifically if it's accurate and factual. I will have no part, and I think Nyrac will have no part in anything that distorts the message or lies or confuses the consumer, because I think ultimately if you are not serving the consumer well, you will lose. Someone will step in and beat you at it, because ultimately the consumer decides what is the best entity to work with. But imagine in this room, how many people are in this room? About 50 people. I would imagine everyone in this room has a sphere of influence of at least 200 people on average. I'm sure people have many, many more than that. But just take this room, multiply it by 200, and you can see the effect and impact we can have on the consumer today if we collectively pool our resources and come up with the messages that are critically important, that counter false narratives and absolute lies that are incredibly damaging to the consumer. I know of too many consumers who have made enormous mistakes going it on their own. I know of too many consumers who have opted for the cheapest service possible, me guilty as charged in other areas, and paid an enormous price for doing so. Yes, you can have instances where there's luck, and yes, there are people in this world who have great knowledge and experience and understanding of real estate who don't need the help of a real estate agent. But the work that we do for the consumer is not just transactional. Transaction is a small component of what we do. Unfortunately, the media has messaged via entertainment vehicles such as reality TV that it's a very glamorous, amazing profession that's super easy and fun. I was actually astounded by one of the reality TV stars who appeared on CNBC the other day, who had the gall to accuse the Brown, Harris, Stevens, and Elements and Corcorans of the world, the old guard, for having spent millions and millions of dollars on fighting lawsuits, when this person in this chair has probably behaved more like a clown than anyone else on the planet and messaged to the world that what we do is just so quick, simple, easy, and it's all about throwing drinks at one another and having parties. But for 10 years, that message has been broadcast into the homes of millions of people around the globe, and believe it or not, those are the people who sit on juries. So if you have a jury and a very smart lawyer who knows how to take advantage of a jury, and they've been messaged for 10 years just how quick and easy that is, how easy is it to win $418 million? I could do it, you could do it, but I think all of us in this room are probably a little baffled or astounded that a legal team were unable to message the counter-narrative, which is the truth. And the truth is that even the property that we so boldly messaged sold in 2 days didn't sell in 2 days. There was an extraordinary amount of work that happened well before that transaction occurred, and no, it didn't close in 2 days either. If it did, it was a very rare and unusual circumstance. But we have failed in messaging the complete picture. Why? Because we wanted to glamorize this business. We wanted to compete with the glamour. We all know, I have clients, I'm sure you do too, who are professional rock stars. A rock star is very glamorous, right? Well, I've walked into that apartment of a rock star to see them rehearsing and doing scales with their voice that's in pain for hours. And all the other things that go into being a glamorous rock star or a glamorous actor who earns millions, while 95% of that profession is earning significantly less, if anything, because they're earning what they earn from working at a restaurant. So this glamorization, artificial glamorization of what we've done, has been effective because it's made us look better, but it has been incredibly counterproductive in that it has also fueled a narrative about who we are and what we do that is grotesquely overpaid, because we are in an industry that pays enormous amounts of money for the average human being as it relates to transactions. So we can't deny that. And I think if we try and deny the feelings and the emotions of the consumer, we will be lambasted and beaten up. So let's not even try to do that. But we do have this phenomenal opportunity right now. Let's assume there are, in New York City alone, let's say there are 10,000 really active agents. If 10,000 agents have 200 people in their sphere of influence and can message facts, details, and reality, then we have an opportunity to counter the negatives of that which is out there right now, which, by the way, is 95% negative. And you could argue that these are the socialists. I read someone yesterday, it's the socialists and the communists who are trying to eradicate. Really? Because I watched CNBC and the Wall Street Journal and Barron's, which are the bastions of capitalism. And they too were harping on the exact same lines of communication. They're overpaid and blah, blah, blah. One of the news networks that is very, very conservative and supposedly all capitalist was even worse than the New York Times. How did that happen? Maybe this is the only thing on the planet that has united the citizens of the world. The hatred of agents and how much they get paid. Well, some agents do get paid too much. Let's accept that fact. There's some agents who are incompetent, who are lazy, who are inefficient, who lie, who are unethical, and we have to do our very best to self-police that. I think we do a pretty decent job in that, but I also think we have celebrated, awarded, rewarded a lot of players in this industry who we all know who are really bad players, who do really bad things on a regular basis. But because they produce a lot, it's okay. Maybe as of today we say, it's not okay, and we call them out. My brother lives in Switzerland. We were just talking about this earlier. He lives in Switzerland. If you cross the street and the light is against you, a cop doesn't arrest you or write a ticket. All the people around you go like, hey, you can't, it's a peer pressure. And when you have a peer pressure, and you know that that peer pressure is almost automatic, behaviors change. So I think we have to self-police our profession and elevate it to be a profession, because it should be a profession, and it is a profession. Most of everyone in this room takes what we do extremely seriously. We all know the complexities and unusual circumstances that arise in every transaction to know that this is not simple, quick, easy stuff. We have failed to message that to the consumer, so what we have to do is elevate the quality of what we do. And then on a case-by-case basis, people will automatically see what you're doing. But remember, the volume of people who buy real estate is a very small portion. And they don't do so every year, they do so every multiple years. Sometimes, on average, I think the owner now stays in their home for 12 to 13 years. So they don't have consistent, ongoing exposure to what we're doing. It's a very, very small group who do. And in this lies our responsibility now. Now it's our responsibility, if we care about this industry and if we care about this profession, to message clearly and succinctly exactly what we do. And yes, if a property does sell in 2 days, please let the world know it sold in 2 days, but also don't fail to showcase what it took to sell it in those 2 days. What exactly were the circumstances around that? I mean, one of the biggest fallacies right now that I'm reading again and again and again is that this is going to bring down the price of real estate because it's the agents who have elevated pricing. Now, that is called Harry Potternomics, not that is like mysteriously like outer world thinking, and yet where did you read that headline? In some of the most astute publications from some of the smartest people in the world, who, by the way, are so smart that I'd be certain they know exactly what they're saying. They know exactly the value of what they're saying. Why? They want to win over the love of the consumer so that they come and use their product, because their product transfers the incomes you and I earn into their pockets. It's really that simple. And I have enough evidence from other parts of the world to know that this exact same thing has happened in other parts of the world. So don't underestimate the power of really corrupt, smart people. They're out there. But what are we to do? And I think we all have this phenomenal responsibility now to message exactly what we do. So I think we're very good when we meet with sellers. And I do think there is a tremendous onus on any seller's representative today to clearly message the value of buyer's agents. I do think there's some really rotten players in our industry who for decades have tried to eliminate the buyer's agent so they can earn all the commission, right? That's been a favorite topic for years. I want a direct deal. Well, you know what? Whose interest is the direct deal in? Is it in the interest of the seller, or is it in the interest of the agent? And the minute it's in the interest of the agent exclusively, we're doomed. So that's the next thing that's coming, by the way. What about all these direct deals? Dual representation, watch that end quickly, and then all of a sudden people will be all confused like drunk flies at the beginning of spring. Like, okay, we don't want buyer's agents, but we do want buyer's agents, but we don't want direct deals, but we do. And like, everyone's gonna get very confused, and in the confusion lies the opportunity for us to be the calm force of reason, intelligence, and insight, and provide them reality. That yes, a really smart, incentivized buyer's agent has tremendous value to the process, that the commissions that are paid out of any transaction are paid as an accounting of a transaction. They aren't one person paying the other. How many times have you received a check? I mean, how many checks do you have for commissions that are written for by the buyer? The buyer writes a check for the commission, so they're writing it to the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, but that's not what the press has told us. We've been told that it's all coming from the seller. No, it's coming from the proceeds of a sale. So we have to identify exactly what is happening in this and message it to the outside world. I also think that, most importantly, we should not, as an industry, poo-poo the consumer. There are going to be a lot of consumers coming to us and going like, everyone tells me I should be doing this for 3%. Why am I paying you 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever percent? They have every right to believe that. The consumer has been told all sorts of things for decades that ultimately they find out not to be true. Why should this not be the case? And I think if there was one gift that ultimately I think we will prevail on, and it's that the media in this moment has proven unequivocally that any buyer or seller seeking insights and intelligence about real estate from a Google search or from reading an article chances are going to be grotesquely misled. And in that lies our greatest value as agents, that we have the capacity to disseminate that which is pertinent and relevant to the specific client, curate a strategy around what is needed for them to succeed at what they're aiming to do, and more importantly, to remind them that the insights we provide to the clientele out there are a result of not a Google search, but months and years of doing what we do on a regular basis, observing, learning, relearning, attending meetings like this, speaking to Andrew and other attorneys, etc., that this knowledge base that we bring to the table is significantly more valuable than any average or report or any article about what happened in markets a few months ago. And these are our golden opportunities right now. And we should seize these opportunities, and we shouldn't get nervous or panicked. Or I mean, I've seen so many like emotional outbursts about this past week that I almost want to like jump. This is not a time for emotion. I do believe it's a time for anger. There should be a tremendous level of anger and frustration that so much has been so poorly communicated for so long. I do think our trade organizations, in many regards, have failed us miserably, really miserably. I think we need to hold them up to a much higher standard. And more importantly, let's stop relying on the man to take care of business. Let's call out bad behaviors amongst our agents. Let's elevate the quality of the services we provide. Let's message to the world exactly what we do and what it takes to get there. And most importantly, as it relates to cost, because I do think we're very expensive. When I see a commission check for $487,000, I go like, whoa, that's a lot. Sometimes I'm almost a little embarrassed by that. But I remind myself, and I actually didn't remind myself, my client reminded me of this. Said, Leonard, I have been in touch with you for 17 years. In those 17 years, I've spoken to you multiple times on multiple occasions on multiple issues around my real estate. You've sent me information on a monthly basis as to what's happening in the market. You've provided me with unreal insights for 17 years. And now you're getting paid for 17 years worth of work as well as a transaction. So if we can remind our clientele that what we do is not purely transactional, because if it is, more than likely they can get that for a discount, and they probably should. But if we can message clearly and deliver on the promise that what we do starts well before a transaction, goes all the way through a transaction, and continues forever afterwards, and it's not about transactional advisory or transactional facilitation. We are real estate advisors. We provide insights and intelligence on all things real estate, all year round, forever. And if we do that, and you take the income you get from closing maybe once every 10, 15 years, I would use the word cheap. Now, don't use that with the consumer because I tell you, but if you look at it and you multiply it over time, it's actually a very good service. It's a top quality service if you provide top quality service. And I guess you can tell I had coffee. If anyone calls me Lenny, watch out. My parents did, and I put them up for adoption. Questions? Andrew?
Well, I just think the hard part is we're having this conversation now, but consistency wins, right? So whether you have to send yourself a diary reminder once a month to like think about this and act proactively in your community and your network, because we all have different networks, they cross over a little bit, but it's consistency, right? Where is this conversation going to be in a year? You know, not that, oh, I forgot about the conversation, let me, you know, get going now, but what are you doing, you know, week by week, month by month? And kind of what you're saying, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? That's like my partner and I have a slogan to our team, you know, it's talking about the marathon approach. These are our careers. I mean, you are the doctor, you are the lawyer, you are, you know, the financial advisor, all of that. Let's jump into the question.
Thank you so much. You are like amazing and everything.
It's
And
the
like they
fake
hit the
accent.
nail. Yeah, it's the accent too for sure. But you mentioned, because one of the things, like I have read comments, and one of the a lot of the comments is what happens internationally and people saying it works. You said you obviously have evidence. Is this something that you can share within the community? Like I'm 100% like on board with supporting every aspect of it, and I've been in this business over 20 years too, and know the value of everything that we all do in general. So
Well, people are always very selective with their facts. It's
Right.
a common theme these days.
Right.
It's called truthful hyperbole.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You say to someone like, I wonder if Andrew is creepy. I didn't say he was. Right. So, you know, I don't mean that by what I'm saying. But seriously, it's very easy to have truthful hyperbole, and the message around what people pay in other parts of the world commission-wise is also fallacy. Go speak to someone in France who's bought a high-end property. They'll say, 2%? Are you kidding me? In Italy, my brother just bought a home outside of Milan. I think it was 8%. He negotiated, as we all do, but he negotiated, it was 8%, wow, that's a lot. So it varies considerably at the quality of service and depends mostly on market conditions. So if anyone wants to read up an interesting story, Google REA and read all about that. Because that is an entity owned by a really big entity that we all know very well in this room, who owns a website that's very, very, very widely used, similar to a Zillow or a StreetEasy, and they're very much entrenched in the community in America, and you know, just interesting to watch. I'm not going to speak about it, but REA Realty, just Google and see what is happening in Australia. But in Australia, by the way, if you're an agent today, you have to advertise in one location, in one site, if you want to sell a property, period. And that's the future of real estate if we allow those who are messaging fallacies to continue.
I worked for Business Week magazine before coming into real estate, and they kept the editors on one floor and publishing on another floor. The only time we got together was at Christmas, during the Christmas party. And they wrote their articles separate from me, and those of us in publishing lost business because of the articles they wrote. But the editors and the writers were specialists in their categories. They focused on one category so that when something happened, they had a whole file on that industry and those people within that. And I appreciate it so much more today than I did back then. And there's one other thing I wanted to say. I've had clients, sellers, say to me, I had no idea you work so hard.
Well, if they'd watched television, they would believe that story.
But this was before the show. And I was a proponent for I kept saying, we need a TV show on real estate. But I didn't mean what we got. What I meant was the rule of getting all the work that we do.
That's boring.
Yeah.
That is a really, really boring show. And let's face it,
Nobody wants to see it.
what does a lawyer do that's so exciting? They're reading and reading and reading all day long. What is a doctor doing? It's like, yeah, you have to read tons, right? It's not that, there's nothing glamorous. And what about, oh, Taylor Swift, her life is so glamorous, she's in a jet, she's smoking. Like, no, Taylor Swift is, that poor girl is running up and down the stage, and her producer's telling her, no, you've got to do this right, and that she's got to rehearse again and again and again. Vocal exercises, traveling, costume, this, that. She's got to answer to 1 million people all the time, all of whom want to be her friend. It's a monster of a job. There's nothing glamorous about being Taylor Swift, by the way. Zero. There's zero glamorous about being a real estate agent, except when we put on the theater, because that's who we are. When you go into Bergdorf Goodman today, it's exquisite, it smells beautifully. Bless you, walk behind that door and see what's happening behind the scenes. Ugly, really ugly, not fashionable at all. Ugly, tired, looks like 1963. Truly. So glamour is something we all seek in life because it's the one moment that gives us some sense of hope and I guess some kind of enjoyment. But in reality, there's what is so easy about life in general anywhere, whether you're a human being or whether you're an antelope running through the field. There's always someone chasing after you, right? Not an easy existence, and nothing is very glamorous, but look how we glamorize lions. It's glamorous. They get shot and get stuck on the wall. Their heads get stuck on the wall. Do you want your head on the wall? It's not easy.
So Nyrac costs $400 a year to join. So can I ask anybody in this room that doesn't see the value in joining Nyrac when you get this type of presentation on a regular basis? And this is only part of what Nyrac does. It is an incredibly rewarding part of, I joined as a member, I'm now on the board, and I joined the board for a reason, and I encourage all of you guys to seize this opportunity and join this organization.
Let's use that as a
There's also-
segue.
There's also a monthly payment option.
There is a monthly payment option as well.
Yeah, you pay for Apple
$34
TV.
a month.
Yeah,
That's
you pay
right.
Apple TV every month.
Yeah, I
It's
spend
like-
more on
We'll send an email.
Write it out.
Yeah.
Well, let's use that as a quick segue, talking about network and resources. And just to put it out there, additional resource that all of you have now. We just expanded our firm to a tax controversy attorney. So essentially, your client that's moving from New York to Florida, right, and has an issue with residency, it takes a very proactive approach to do it correctly. Your client's had a broker reach out to me yesterday. Their client has IRS issues, right? So maybe people haven't paid taxes, they want to buy an apartment. Your small business owners that need to pay sales tax don't understand sales tax, so it's a resource. For me as an attorney, I find our relationship to be very intimate. My whole text message chain is real estate brokers. I do not find that you have the same intimate relationship with bankers, mortgage brokers. And in today's world, it's critical. Like, you should be speaking to your banker. I used to say quarterly, now it's weekly or monthly because things are changing so often. So for you to have a resource and a network of 2-3 top bankers that you can call on, get a building approved if you're going to pitch an exclusive, you're working with a buyer, they have an offer, even if they have pre-approval from Joe Schmo Bank and you want them to speak to somebody who's reputable. A lot of bankers, right, are getting shopped around. Every banker is getting shopped around more aggressively today than ever before, and they're losing steam, and it's a little discouraging. But if you have a relationship with certain bankers and they take your client's call, they actually spend, kind of what Leonard's talking about, not just pitch a rate, but actually spend a half hour and speak to your client and understand their profile, what they can and can't do. It's not only necessary, but it's critical in today's market. And as the market builds with non-contingent deals and buildings having issues with local law 11, et cetera, you must, even though they're trying to impress you, you have to befriend 2 or 3 bankers to make sure they're on your side and they're on your client's side. I think that's the ultimate resource that's needed as the market shifts and evolves.
And one thing I would add to that, because a lot of people in our business refer great resources to their clientele. But one thing I do see that will bite you back hard, and that is if you only want to refer your friend Sally in XYZ. Because that's wonderful, and I think loyalty is one of the greatest things of all time. But I do think ultimately when it comes to any kind of referral, whether it's an attorney or a banker or anyone, you have to ask the question, what is in the best interest of my client? And that referral has to reflect their personality, not just competency. So I think every resource you have at your disposal should have quality as the #1 criteria. Second to that is, this is a people business. All business is basically very personal. And I do think the matching of personality styles and expertise is as important as just referring someone. So don't make the mistake of referring someone just because they're a friend or because they've been good to you, which I think is a wonderful thing to do if you can. But let the consumer's specifics and needs be the driving force of who you refer them to. That to me is really important, and today more than ever, if you want to be in an advisory capacity, your resource list should be extensive. It is something you should sell as a seller's agent or a buyer's agent to showcase that you have the ability to advise them on all things real estate, not just the transaction. Insurance, I mean, furniture resources, interior design, architects, engineers, inspectors, I mean, the works. Get deep into this here and then message to your client base. I'm not just here for the transaction, I'm here to help you with all things real estate related. And then all of a sudden people see more value.
I think it's really important to emphasize to your clients that your referrals, network, they're not commodities. Meaning, people assume, I get clients buying a $5 million apartment, what's your legal fee? And obviously I'm not giving them a legal fee without explaining the firm, the services we provide, the value we add. But a lot of clients will look at all these professionals you just listed and saying, yes, if I hire this person or that person, it's gonna be very similar. But you should, and hopefully explain to them, hey, take your time speaking to these referral sources. Number one, who you're comfortable with, who do you have, who's educating you, who's adding value. So, I guess more importantly than, people not listening to your referral sources, not speaking to cousin Jane in, wherever, and taking their referrals, right? Because explaining that, hey, this is a curated list, industry professionals that know the local market. A lot of clients, unfortunately, think they can just go to anybody, right? And even if they trust you, they may not trust your resources unless you make it clear that, this is a curated list. This is part of the value I'm providing, and some people can consider it a commoditized business, but clearly we know good brokers versus not so good brokers, attorneys, any profession. So it's really important. I think clients, I didn't get in touch with Andrew, I just picked the first attorney who picked up, which, now I know in my world we have to answer the phone very quickly, but that sometimes doesn't, make sense to me, right?
I would also add, as the lawyer in this team, that it would be wise, very wise, to put a disclaimer on anyone you refer and say, we have had outstanding experience with this person. They're very good at what they do. Not only have I had if you have had personal experience with this person, but my clients have been very satisfied with them. But know that sometimes these things don't work out, and I just want you to do a little bit of your own due diligence before you commit to whoever I'm referring you to. And of course I trust your judgment. Something like that, because every relationship can go wrong, even for the best of reasons. So just protect yourself there, I would say.
So Leonard Steinberg, I think you're fabulous.
I think you're more fabulous. Let's keep going.
Yes, no, I'm not finished yet. You are fabulous, and I want to add to what you just said, because my story was that I did refer a fantastic painter to a great client, and while he was painting, she said to him, my floor is not, got a problem. Do you do floors? And my painter said, yes, I do floors. The next thing he did was into the floors, he put a hammer, the entire building had to be shut down because the gas line is what he hit. I ended up, and attorneys over here, and I have to, because it was like phenomenal, because who was to blame? The referral agent was the first one. Well, you referred me. Well, he's my painter. As a matter of fact, Jerry Feeney, the attorney, was involved in this whole mess. So to your point, besides being fabulous, and I want you coming June 18th for my live program again, really be careful about what you made them all celebrities. No, but seriously, be really careful. It ended up being a terrible, litigious lawsuit, and I lost my client, in case you're interested. Never again.
Well, you've read the whole building, you deserve it. Questions? Comments? God, a group
I do want to do sorry to interrupt with a plug for Nyrac again, but I do want to give a shout out to our curated list. So we have a variety of vendors, partners in real estate that we work with. I see Joe Hamill here from Steinway Moving. So we've got movers, we've got property managers, Dylan Pachulik, including Andrew. We have everything from coverings that you put on your windows to make them soundproof. We have people who can provide that. So just by, coming up to them and saying, hey, I'm a part of Nyrac, you instantly have this sort of connection and
well, also, no, I think
level of
what's very
service.
important is by belonging to this group, there is an automatic pressure to uphold certain standards.
Yeah.
And I think that is invaluable. It's truly invaluable. You know, if Steinway Moving has a bad experience with a move, and that person tells Nyrac it's not good for Steinway Moving, right? So Steinway might go that extra mile to make it a really great experience, and I think that's incredibly valuable to the consumer. But just remember, anything you do from today onwards, if you could put a guiding force up on the wall, what is it? Warren Buffett has on his wall, "Thou shalt never lose money ever." That we won't do. But there is a saying that I think we should live by, and that is, what is in the best interest of the consumer? And it's not in the best interest of the consumer for them to do it themselves. And it's not in the best interest of the consumer to pay a buyer's commission themselves. And it's not in the best interest of a consumer to pay a discounted rate for poor quality brokerage. I mean, if they can get discounted for great quality, then so be it. But what is in the best interest of the consumer really at the end of the day? And if you answer that question proactively and demonstrate exactly how you're going to get them to that point, you will be just fine. And our entire profession will actually soar. Please.
Do you think it would be worthwhile if Nyrac or even the company presidents, we all had one letter to send to our client list, giving our side of the story? I don't like to say in defense of us, because that's defensive.
Or say we should all get 8% commission? No, I'm kidding.
Yes. No, but do something so that they're not only reading the negative things in the paper, which are so false, because we all do work very hard. You don't just open a door. People think we just open doors.
I think you make a very good point. I do think it is a moment in time where the brokerages could come together and really truly, in the form of a letter, demonstrate the value that we bring
But
to the
think how
table.
far that would go. It would go to millions of people.
The
But even-
problem is, do people read?
Right.
This is the big
Don't
problem.
make it too long.
Yes.
That's the
But,
most
but I
important
think,
thing.
to Leonard's initial point, yes, that would be great. The reality is, it's not happening. But all of you, 10,000 real estate brokers, or even 50 real estate brokers, you can pierce your network so much more powerfully than a one letter to the mass media, right?
Well,
Because-
I thought to our individual.
So yes,
No, I think you
there's
make a
a
good
macro and
point.
I guess there's a macro and micro, right? There's a macro could be very
It
beneficial.
also gives us an excuse to reach out to our
But
mailing
my
list.
point is exactly, do that on your own, like maybe it's,
You
maybe.
would like
we-
a united
yeah.
message.
Yeah.
Not so much united, but from an authority besides me,
Right.
something that represents the whole industry.
Well, you'll
not
see-
I think
just
that right now,
ours.
though, we should be a little careful given this collusion.
Yeah, we don't
type
want to
of-
do anything that colludes.
Yeah.
Collusion is mostly about trying
Right.
to get
It's the
specific set
opposite.
incomes or
Yeah.
something like that. You
It's
know,
not
it,
defense.
it was interesting, someone was on CNBC, I think it was one of the lawyers as part of this here, who had said the brokerage associations are a cartel. Well, a cartel is opaque, right? And what does a cartel do? A cartel controls production. They don't control pricing, they control production. Because when you control production, you're actually going to the basic 101 of economics, supply and demand, not Harry Potternomics. Harry Potternomics is like, they charged their commission, the prices went up. No, they didn't. Harry Potternomics speaks to fallacy. Reality is it's a supply and demand price economy. When there was no paper towel in March of 2020, paper towel prices went insane. When they came back, they went way down. And if anyone wants to translate it to real estate, use Austin as the ultimate case study. Austin home prices soared between 2020 and 2023. And they've come down for one reason only. Not because agents disappeared, not because agent commissions came down, but for one reason only. Supply went way up. It's the only reason. And I think this is the message we have to relay again and again and again. As a cartel, if we truly were a cartel, then we would say, we're taking this off the market, let's take all the 4 bedrooms off the market and only list 3. That's a cartel. And that would ultimately dictate pricing. But what we're doing has got nothing to do with the cartel, 0. So that's just a fallacy. But guess what? A jury believed it.
And I think for you, there'll be, obviously lots of opinions about this, and for you to really take a proactive approach, or any of you, you can pull what you think is credible and what makes sense, and you know, that can be a little bit of a resource for you.
And
Yeah.
I will be posting daily from now until eternity little clips on things that I think are fact versus fiction. And I think if we all did that really proactively on my social media, I'll
Just
just
should reshare.
you can do reshares. I know it sucks. I hate social media, but it works. I hate social media. And when people go like, I like the plant you put in your living room, I was like, why did I
You
push that?
shifted it, you put in position that plant.
I did put that plant in. It's ridiculous.
Well, we wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you, Leonard. Thank you, Daniel. Our team will be coming forward.
If anyone wants a tour, myself, Connor, and Julia, and my team, going to be doing tours of amenities and some models. Just stick around, and we'll thank you.
Thanks.